What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's BamaInsider Sunday night. We're going to take your calls. Kyle Henderson and Mick Gillispie. Got a lot to talk about. I know that most of you want to hear about the matchup with New Mexico State coming up on Saturday. No, I'm just kidding. Look, everybody wants to talk about last night's win over LSU. And before we get there, like and subscribe. And when you're hanging out with us tonight, know that we appreciate you being here. Hit the bell. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And when you want the latest information on the Crimson Tide, BamaInsider.com's got you covered. Kyle Henderson's our managing editor. We got Andrew Bone that takes care of recruiting. Trey Yanity helping us out. It's a really great crew. And Kyle, didn't get a chance to talk to you last night, but I want to hear your thoughts about Alabama's 20-14 win over LSU.
Wait, they won? They won the game last night? Are they still ranked in the top 25? Look, this team is clearly on the ropes. Every single week, it's a different team, but they keep on winning. And the thing about it is Nick Saban is pleased with these wins. I mean, straight up. I mean, maybe he knows that this team isn't, or is beatable. But look, after every single game, besides Mercer, has Nick Saban ever been frustrated with the team after the game? No, he hasn't. Every single game, he praises the team. He praises the defense, and that must make Pete Golding fans furious, or because he loves Golding clearly, and he loves this defense. And the defense, I thought they played better in the second half. Came out with some big plays, and Alabama survives another week of college football.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the bottom line. When Alabama's struggling, Nick Saban's always at his most positive. And when I know that when he comes in with the light hands and he's patting people on the back, Kyle, I start to get worried.
Yeah. No, I mean, his Saban's a genius at every single thing he does. And I think that he knows that, this team is beatable. But if this team can gut out gritty wins like they did against LSU, and like, Bama fan is saying right here, they're only 3 points away from being unbeaten. And you look at the rest of college football, every single week, these teams can't do what Alabama's still doing. That's winning. Michigan State, look, I mean, they were playing Purdue. I get it. Purdue's a good football team. Couldn't finish. You look at Cincinnati on the ropes with Tulsa, a game they should have lost. So, I mean, look, Alabama is still in a great spot, still controls their own destiny, but the fans want Golding gone. They want Bill O'Brien gone. They want Doug Marrone gone. And I have never, ever seen anybody point the finger at Saban. Never. I've never seen anybody say Saban is accountable. No, it's never him, right? It's always Bill O'Brien, Pete Golding, Doug Marrone. And I want to get everyone's thoughts. I mean, because he's the head man, but he's also responsible for why this team is where they're at still in the college football rankings. And I guarantee you that on Tuesday night, I don't know if they're going to slip or whatever because these college football rankings don't even matter. But Alabama's still in the mix and they're still in a great spot. I still like where Alabama is, and the rest of the college football, besides Georgia, Alabama can beat the rest of those teams.
205-850-0883 if you want to get in on the conversation tonight here on the Bama Insider and our YouTube channel. Look, Kyle, here's our first super chat. It's from Joseph. I'm going to let you chew on this a little bit. Why don't we rotate wide receivers like we did in 2018 and 19? We got a lot of talented guys sitting on the bench right now. Your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, they force Slade Bolden down your throat. I mean, I think, honestly, if you really want to know what I think those Wildcat packages with Slade Bolden are completely ridiculous. Look, Slade, great kid. Everything that he's done for Alabama, amazing. The athletes that Alabama has, I would put Jalen Milroe in a Wildcat package a million times more than I would Slade Bolden. I don't know why they're not rotating. You have all these guys in. Ajay Hall's, continue to, he's upset, but he's like, come on. I mean, he's got to grow up. He can't be acting like that. I think there's a lot of talent within this team, but if I was guarding Alabama, if I was a DC for Alabama, you know what I would do? I would just guard John Mechie. That's all I would do every single time, because either Bryce Young likes John Mechie too much or Bill O'Brien's calling up plays to John Mechie. I think Jameson Williams, I think he's very good. I love the ball, actually, that Bryce connected with Jameson Williams. I thought that was probably Bryce's best throw of the season, honestly, in terms of a deep ball. But I don't know. Jameson Williams, he has like slippery hands or something like that. I think he even fumbled the football last night, right? And I thought it was unbelievable that there was a play called where Jameson Williams was an ineligible wide receiver. I thought, like, I maybe I'm not smart enough to understand, but that was, what do you think of that, Mick? Jameson Williams was like, hey, don't even throw it to me.
Yeah, man, I'm just so confused by the offensive line. I mean, I know that we're focusing on wide receivers, but anyone that wants to criticize Bryce Young is missing the boat right now. This guy's keeping Alabama elite, with his ability to just move out of the way when he's being chased down by, tacklers coming from all different positions. And I thought Alabama's offensive line, just because of the injury, maybe guys moved around, but they just did not look prepared. And it just caused everything else. I mean, we're talking about receivers, and it was a great question, but what about the running game? I don't remember the last time Alabama couldn't run the ball like that.
Could not run the football. I mean, 6 yards. 6 yards, that's unacceptable. The offensive line, I like to get kind of, Saban's true thoughts on the offensive line. I know a lot of people are really upset with Doug Marrone and kind of the offensive line rotation. How much did Darrell Dalcourt play a role into that? I mean, Darrell Dalcourt, he's a center. I mean, he doesn't play an instrumental part in the run game package. I didn't like, the scheme overall. I didn't like it. I mean, Brian Robinson, you're talking about a fifth-year senior that's played in over 60 games, having 6 yards rushing or whatever, couldn't get it going. And you're right, Mick. Without Bryce Young, I don't know how many games that this team has won this season. And the other player that we need to highlight is William Anderson. If William Anderson doesn't play last night, they lose that game 100%. William Anderson, I did the Pro Football Focus grades. I think his grade was like only an 80 or something like that, which is ridiculous because I think William Anderson's grade needs to be about 100. What he was able to do, he was a complete game changer. And without him, and he's only a sophomore, so that kind of shows you where the leadership is on this team, right? You're looking at sophomores. We're talking about Bryce Young. We're talking about William Anderson. Outside of that, those two guys are carrying this team. Without William Anderson, this team is in deep, deep doo-doo.
Look, I'm going to give you my final thought from last night, and I want you to tell me what you think. I feel like Alabama isn't as good as their record, but I feel like they know how to win. And Nick Saban has these guys believing that they know how to win. Now, they're young, and they're going to be really good next year, right? Because you got Bryce Young and Anderson and all these other guys coming back. The upperclassmen really haven't been contributors on a major level. They're inconsistent. They're not game changers like the younger guys are. And maybe Alabama's just having one of those years where we need to look at Nick Saban and say, man, you're doing a great job with less, and a lot of this is just mental.
Yeah, it very well could be. I don't know. I can't pinpoint it because like every single time when you look at this team, you feel like you can put your finger on something. It's the offense. It's a defensive, the inside linebacker. It's something, or but you can't because every single week it's like they're adjusting to something or they're trying to compensate for something. And you're right. I mean, Nick Saban still has his team in a great spot to still win the SEC. Still compete for the playoffs, still compete for a national championship. And this could be probably one of his best coaching jobs ever. And look, people are fed up, though, with the defense. They're fed up with the offense. This is the first. Pete Golding's probably like, thank goodness Bill O'Brien is here, so everybody's not just calling for my head. Because after the game last night, I saw everybody was like, get rid of Bill, get rid of Pete, and get rid of Doug Marrone, and just leave Saban. Let Saban coach everything. I don't know. I think that, when we look back at this year, it's going to be interesting to see, kind of like play these moments because that win against LSU, I said thrilling. I think people felt it was frustrating. The first drive of the game against LSU, never seen anything like it. I mean, from Alabama, not polished, coming off a bye week. Saban said that they had a good week. They didn't look like they were really locked in. But look, and call me crazy, I still feel that Alabama is going to be in a prime position. And the reason I feel like that is because I feel like they haven't played their best game of the season.
I'm going into the super chats again. Joseph, thanks for hooking us up. High five right back at you. I don't think Bill O'Brien realizes that we have superior athletes out there. He isn't coaching the NFL. And that kind of goes back to your thought too, Kyle, about the frustration that Alabama fans feel. But I don't think you can – I know there were some missed coverages on defense, but at the end of the day, they only gave up 14 points, right? And the way that things are in this world of college football, that's a great game. And think about it. There are like 2 or 3 plays out there away from maybe only giving up 7 or shutting them out. You know, like it wasn't like they were getting blown off the ball or, you know, anything like that. But the offense is the thing that I think a lot of us are really concerned about. And Alabama does have great athletes.
Yeah, of course they do. I mean, but, you know, there's only a few amount of guys that are getting opportunities. I mean, this has been one of the years where you really haven't seen a lot of the backups been playing. And I get it. I mean, you got to play the best players, and especially in a tight game like this. But when I'm looking kind of at the AP and the coaches poll and the college football playoff rankings, look, let me ask you this. I mean, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, Oregon, Notre Dame, Michigan State, Michigan, Alabama beats those teams. I still think that this team is in prime position to really make their case for the top 4 spot. And I know, everyone's all about Georgia this, and look, I get it. Georgia's there, and especially the way that Stetson Bennett's been playing. Man, JT Daniels might have to hit the portal again, because Stetson Bennett is rolling. Some of the throws he made against Missouri, I know it's against Missouri, but still he's putting the ball Jermaine Burton's hands. I mean, he looks really good. I think Alabama, you know, this game against New Mexico State, another chance to fine tune or whatever. I still don't think that those two teams should ever see each other in the world of college football. It's kind of aggravating that they play each other, right? Because you're just like, what? New Mexico State. But it'll get them another chance to dial back in. You got Arkansas. Arkansas will drop 8 or whatever they do. Alabama will get by them. And then the game that everybody is kind of looking at and circled every single year, clearly, because it's the Iron Bowl, is against Auburn. Because I'm telling you, I don't know. Bo Nix, he didn't have his best game against Texas A&M, but he's going to play the game of his life. And remember the game against that he beat Alabama? He's going to play twice as better. I promise you that. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be very challenging. And I'm curious to see what the line is on that game. I might put it as a pick 'em down at Auburn. I don't know. Auburn's going to be ready, but, you know, so is Nick Saban.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I agree. I think that this Auburn game looms off in the distance. You've got Auburn Jesus involved as normal, you know, and they're having the season, even though they lost last week, but you know they're going to contend against Alabama. Arkansas could be an issue, but look at the top 25, and then it's kind of focused on the teams around Alabama. I look at this, and even with all of Alabama's issues, I still think they're the second best team in the country, even if they lose to Auburn. Yeah,
man, I guess you could say that. I mean, when you look at, you know, kind of the teams floating around, I mean, Cincinnati, get out of here. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, and a big reason to that, because, you know, it was tight with Tulsa because Jerome Ford went out in the third quarter or the second quarter, whatever. Very good running back. I wish he was still at Alabama, but I know he had to make moves, and I think he made the best move. He's very, very talented. My goodness. Oklahoma, they're going to lose maybe 2 more times. You know, I know they're undefeated, but I think their back end schedule, as we've talked about week in, week out, I think they're going to lose. Oregon, they're on the verge of losing almost every single week. Ohio State is playing some good football. I know they didn't put Nebraska away, but what Ohio State has, I mean, I think that they could definitely win the Big Ten once again. And then who else? So I think that, like you said, I mean, it's going to have to work out to a way where if Alabama did lose to Auburn, that they would make the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. They have to win out if they want to make the college football playoffs. I think they can do it. I just, the offensive line it scares me. I mean, Bryce Young, I mean, yeah, the kid is tough, and he got popped. He got hit. He talked about the physicality after the game. He cannot get hit. Bryce Young he's as equal to as William Anderson, right? You take out one of those players, Alabama loses the next game that they play in. Honestly, they probably lose against Arkansas. That's how pivotal those two players are on this team. I do believe that they're good enough to win out. I do believe that they're going to compete with Georgia. Saban is too good to just have Georgia roll over Alabama. That's not going to happen. This team only lost by 3 to Texas A&M. I think that Alabama, if they take care of Auburn, I think they're going to give it all they got against Georgia. I wouldn't be surprised if they still beat Georgia. I know that's crazy, but look, Georgia hasn't won a national title since the 80s. Saban's been in a headlock by Kirby Smart twice. He's been able to wiggle out of those. I guess we'll have to see what happens, but New Mexico State up next. I figured the line is like 50 or 100.
Yeah, I mean, like that's one of those games where Alabama picks the score, but with this offensive line issue, you got to figure they're going to be working on a lot of different things. It comes at a really good time for Alabama because they just look so out of kilt against LSU on Saturday. But we got another super chat here, and we're going right at it again, Kyle. Other than Pete Golding and Bill O'Brien, what other assistant coaches or coach deserves blame for the way Alabama's played on the field? So you know where the comment section is tonight.
Honestly, I mean, look, I think that honestly, I do think that Saban needs to take some of the accountability. He is the coach who hired Golding, who keeps Golding around. It's not like Greg Byrne is the coach that or the guy keeping Pete Golding around. Saban wants Golding on the staff, period. Every single game, does he throw Pete Golding under the bus? When's the last time that he's called out the defense? Honestly, he doesn't. He likes Pete Golding, clearly. The offense, I think he kind of threw Bill O'Brien, a little bit early under the season when they were talking about the red zone plays. In terms of other coaches, I mean, I don't know. I think that whoever's making sure the wide receiver rotation, who's that coach? Is it Holman Wiggins? I doubt it. I think Holman Wiggins works with the guys, and what Holman Wiggins has done for the last couple of years, he's developed those wide receivers to be really good, but I don't know who puts in those receivers. I think there's other guys that deserve opportunities. Remember how good Trayshawn Holden looked a couple weeks ago? Where's he? Where's Trayshawn Holden? And what happened to Jaleel Billingsley? Right? I mean, Cam Latu, he dropped a pass. Slade Bolden, look, I get it. He can catch like a 2-yard pass or whatever. This team needs game breakers. John Mechie, Jamison Williams. Who else is it going to be? Because this team because I don't think Alabama can throw it to John Mechie. I'll find out for you how many times John Mechie was targeted. Every single time it's third down. I was watching the game with my wife, and she's like, they're going to throw it to John Mechie. If my wife knows they're going to throw it to John Mechie, then don't you think the defense is going to? Somebody else needs to step up on this wide receiver unit.
Yeah. I think that Alabama really has struggled with the offense since Chase McClellan got hurt. I mean, they just haven't been able to replace him at all. And Brian Robinson, the straight ahead running didn't work yesterday, didn't get any help from the offensive line. Roydell Williams comes in, and I mean, he breaks a couple runs, and then out he goes again. And you wonder, what's the problem with us seeing more Williams? We don't see Sanders at all. And I'm curious. I mean, we're not at practice. We don't know what's going on if they're missing blocking assignments. He could have just been afraid to put him in because the offensive line was already having problems. But it makes Alabama very predictable on offense without having that one player to me. And he was your game breaker.
That's a really great point, Mick. That's a great point. I think we've seen the offense maybe regress a little bit with the absence of Jace McClellan. And we were talking about that at the beginning of the season, how we both really felt that Jace could be the best back on this team. Now, I know Brian Robinson has done his thing. I mean, if you look at him collectively, Brian Robinson has had a great season, but Jace McClellan added another gear, and I liked both of those guys as a tandem. Without him, they really haven't given Roydell an opportunity, and they've pretty much pushed Trey Sanders to the side. I think they've said, look, Trey, you're not playing until we absolutely need you to. They've just kind of pushed him aside. I don't know the whole spectrum. He's got to be healthy, you got to think. I mean, we would get an injury report, you would think, and Kamar Wheaton, he's hurt. But last night, as I was saying, look, John Mechie targeted 13 times. Jamison Williams targeted 13 times. That's 26 total times that those two were targeted. The other two, you had Slade Bolden targeted 4 times, Cam Latu targeted 3 times, dropped 1 pass, Brian Robinson targeted once, and Roydell Williams. So the game plan is simple. Guard Jamison Williams and guard John Mechie, because Alabama does not have a quality third receiver that has stepped up. I think there's a receiver on this team that can step up. I thought that was going to be Trayshawn Holden. I thought it was going to be Billingsley. You know how much I've been harping on Billingsley, and I still believe in Billingsley. But I don't know. I mean, I just feel that This offense, and thank goodness for Bryce and his playmaking abilities, because without Bryce and the offensive line is not what it has been the last couple of years. My goodness, it's scary. I mean, Bryce is a ninja. You can't touch him. LSU got their hands on him a couple times last night. You got to keep him clean, because if he goes down, it's done.
Yeah. How about the hit he took in last night's game?
He bounced right back up.
Oh, I know.
That was the hardest hit that he's took in his career. 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I mean, and thankfully he's gotten stronger and bigger. I mean, remember where we were last year? We're watching him. He would come into the games, and he was just so thin, and he's just
he's still small.
Yeah,
but he's tough because he's been hit. I mean, I remember Florida came at him. Texas A&M came at him last night. They came at him, but he's tough, man. He's a lot stronger than he looks. I mean, I would like to see him, put on a little bit more bulk, but in terms of his escapability and extending plays, and like I said earlier in the show, that throw to Jamison Williams, man,
it was beautiful.
It was the best throw he's made in terms of a downfield throw all season long.
Yeah, and from what I heard too, one of the sources I have told me that Alabama was working on the deep ball a lot in the off week. That was something that they were trying to really, sand the edges on. And unfortunately for Bryce, is that he really didn't have that much time in the pocket to sit back there and go after the deep ball a lot. But that one was perfect, and that's going to be something that Alabama's going to need if they're going to win a national championship, or if they're going to contend against Georgia, if they even get to that point. I look at the schedule ahead, and we talked about it: New Mexico, Arkansas, and Auburn, and they're all winnable games. We know that Auburn's going to be really tough, but, Arkansas could be tough too. I mean, the fact that Arkansas has become a really solid team. I was able to watch some of the game against Mississippi State this week. And the middle of the SEC right now, in my opinion, Kyle, is as good as it's been in a long time. There's two teams above everyone else, but I'll tell you what, Arkansas is a program that's up and coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam Pittman has certainly turned them into a better team to where they were the last, 3 or 4 years. I mean, since I've lived here in Tuscaloosa, Arkansas has just been pretty much a fart in the wind. Now they're a team that at least, has a little bit of momentum. The quarterback's good. KJ Jefferson, man, he's a big boy. He runs hard. They got a couple weapons on the outside. I think Alabama handles them, but Sam Pittman, I think if you're looking at Alabama, and by the way, what was that super chat? Charles, thank you, man. I appreciate you. We should drop earn back everyone's trust. No, I mean, that's not a bad idea. But I think if you're looking at Alabama, anybody, maybe not my beloved New Mexico State Aggies. And if you're just joining the show, or if you're just new to our channel, yes, I graduated from New Mexico State, part of the country, New Mexico, southwest, west of Texas, east of Arizona. New Mexico State and Las Cruces is beautiful. Some of the best food you'll ever have. Why they're playing the Crimson Tide, I mean, it's a money thing. And thankfully, because New Mexico State didn't have a season last year, they were one of the only Division I programs to not have a season. Their season got canceled because of COVID. They didn't have anybody to play, but they survived because the year before that, they came up to Alabama again, or that was the first time, and Alabama gave them $1.2 million, which helped keep their football program alive. This time, Alabama is paying them, I think it's 1.9, and it's crazy because that might just be enough to help the Aggies get into the Conference USA. So one of the biggest stories, honestly, is the fact that, think about how crazy this is. Alabama football has helped keep New Mexico State football alive. Without New Mexico State playing Alabama, you wouldn't have a New Mexico State football team. It's crazy to think, but that's the case. The Aggies are no match for Alabama. Okay, so you pass them. But I think if anybody else is looking at Alabama, I see an opportunity to go over to Tuscaloosa and beat them. Ed Orgeron did. Ed Orgeron said last night in the press conference, he's like, we're coming into Bryant-Denny Stadium to win. Ed Orgeron. Think about all the stuff that's going on with Orgeron. He doesn't even have all the starters, and he was confident. And after the game, you know what he said? He said, I felt that we are the best team on the field last night. but a slap in the face to Alabama again, because he was just one play away, right? They catch that Hail Mary, they beat Alabama. So I think that, any team out there that's playing Alabama knows that this team is vulnerable. The offensive line is not what we've seen and not what we're accustomed to outside of Evan Neal. They only have 2 wide receivers. Brian Robinson needs to get it going. I don't really point a lot of blame on B-Rob, to be honest. But I think this team has holes. And then on the defensive side, let's face it. I mean, this defense has a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Ed Orgeron coming off the field at the end of the game, and there's the picture of him right there. He's got his hands in the air, and I mean, a lot to be proud of. But at the bottom line is that the better team is the team that ends up winning, right? I mean, that's kind of how the sports work. I'm going to miss the Ed Orgeron, Nick Saban rivalry, and people forget that Nick Saban was, coach at LSU, but LSU did a lot of things right in the football game, and they surprised everyone. I mean, they were 29-point underdog and hung in there. Did you ever feel like they were going to win though?
I don't know. I thought, when Bryce fumbled the football, or when they got where they were able to strip it, I thought, maybe they might be able to, go punch it in. But at that time, I felt that there was still a lot of time left. I don't know. I mean, not really. They weren't going to hit that Hail Mary. I thought they did a good job when Alabama dropped everyone back and they were able to complete a pass to a receiver to put themselves in a better position for a better Hail Mary. But no, I never felt like they were going to lose to LSU. But I think you look at the game against Tennessee. I forget the spread on that game. They still covered, right? And then against LSU, 28 points. I know that's all rat poison stuff, but that gives you a depiction of where everybody thinks of Alabama and where everyone thinks of LSU. But Ed Orgeron didn't buy any of that. I mean, he came in at Tuscaloosa to upset Alabama, and they nearly did. And we'll see. Somebody said they love Cloudcroft, New Mexico. What's up, Roll Tide? Yeah, Cloudcroft, New Mexico. Kind of the southeastern area of New Mexico. It's I would say the elevation is like 7,200 feet. Absolutely beautiful. They have some ski resorts down there. So yeah, definitely. If you've been in New Mexico, such great scenery, blue sky all the time. So yeah, I appreciate you guys chiming in.
You got to give us a breakdown of New Mexico, because none of us really, I've been through there before, but never really stuck around very long. Spent a lot of time in Arizona. But it's an interesting matchup. It's the second time they've came to town. I wonder where the connection is with Alabama to kind of set this game up. And, it's for a lot of us, we just aren't really familiar, other than you said they might go to Conference USA. That would be a big jump for them, right? I mean, they're an independent.
Yeah, but I think like a lot of people who don't know a lot about New Mexico State, they might know them from the basketball side. Their basketball team, very comparable. I would say at least, within the last 3 seasons, I would think New Mexico State would beat Alabama on the basketball court every single time they played. That's not the case anymore since Nate Oates has really elevated the program. Now Alabama clearly beat New Mexico State, but New Mexico State is a team who's always kind of that 15 or 14 seed in the tournament. Actually, a couple years ago, they nearly beat Auburn in the basketball tournament. That's how good they are. Honestly, their basketball team can roll. And that's when Bruce Pearl had everybody rolling. And so New Mexico State, yeah, it's definitely trash. Isaiah's like, it's trash. Yeah, it's absolutely trash. The team, when I went there, and that's why when I moved to Tuscaloosa, it was such a change, because New Mexico State having a football program such trash. I mean, we only get 10,000 people at our games. In fact, the head football coach, Doug Marrone, he lines their own grass at the football stadium. So why are these two teams playing? I don't know. Ask Nick Saban. But it's really about a money game, if you really want to know the truth. Alabama pays for victories. That's how the world of college football works. Keeps the economy going here in the beautiful city of Tuscaloosa. All those restaurants and bars that you love, gives them another opportunity on a beautiful Saturday to keep the doors open. Everybody takes advantage of it, including us. Is it going to be a 60-3 game, 60-0 game? Probably. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you know what? I'm glad that they're playing, because it's kind of nice to hear about somewhere that I've never been to, and this matchup tomorrow has a little more significance because we all know you from our channel and working with you, and I'm sure there's a little bit of excitement just to be able to see those two helmets on the same field again at the same time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I know the athletic director down there, James Hall, really good person, and it's really interesting because before I came over to cover the Alabama Crimson Tide, I was covering New Mexico high school football. And, it was really interesting for me because I never even lived in SEC country or anything like that. So I'm covering Las Cruces and Mayfield. And then my next year, I'm covering Alabama and Auburn. So the opportunity to come over to beautiful Tuscaloosa, where it's great, it's been really wonderful. But yeah, New Mexico, what they lack in football, they make up for with some beautiful scenery and some amazing food, and actually going back for Thanksgiving. So really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, we're going to take some calls here shortly, but you've mentioned food twice. I mean, you got to give us a breakdown of, and I know you want to talk football, but just give us a couple places that when we're in New Mexico that we need to try, or some of the food there that, if you're like recommending to us, what you would recommend.
All right, so Isaiah, you got to tell me in the comment box where you're from, and I'll tell you where I've been. But I used to live in Las Cruces, but I'm originally from Santa Fe, New Mexico. So if you've been to Santa Fe is in northern New Mexico. You definitely got to hit the Pantry. The Pantry is a type of restaurant where you can split your burrito between red and green chili. One of the most amazing meals that you can get if you're down in Las Cruces. There's plenty of places to hit. I think that it's almost countless, because you have like these chili rellenos and Isaiah's in the comment box. So I went to New Mexico State. Let's see, Isaiah. So if you look up NM Preps, I used to run NM Preps. That was from 2005 to 2014. I'm trying to think of some places. I'll think about it. I'll post it in the comment box on Mick is taking some calls. But so many great places to check out in New Mexico. But Santa Fe is, that's where my mom lives. I lived in Albuquerque for a little while as well. So all across the state, and no, it's good, man. Yeah, and Billy's asking. Someone was asking about, the Mexican feast. Oh yeah, you come to the Hendersons, you're definitely getting tacos. You're getting, the enchiladas. You're getting the whole spiel over here.
Yeah, I love the red and green chilies.
I kind of like infused with like crawfish, because now we're like, doing crawfish in the springtime through the summertime. I mean, my wife, she has crawfish, every single Saturday, with all her girlfriends.
Yeah, do they call it Christmas when you mix the red and green chilies together? Yeah, that's what they do in Arizona.
That's the question. So, I'll peel off. I'll let you take the calls, right. And then I'll chime in on the comment box. But thank you so much for watching us. We got tons of great coverage coming up. We got Nick Saban on Monday, Monday Night Quarterback, Tuesday with Andrew Bone, the recruiting show, and then we got Tuesday, the college football rankings come out. Don't worry, I know it might feel like the sky is falling at time, but, Alabama football is still in a great spot, control their own destiny. Mick, have a good time taking the calls.
All right, thanks. Kyle's the most positive guy about the future of Alabama. He thinks they're going to win every single game. So it's like the rest of us are like, oh, my goodness, the sky does feel like it's falling. Let's go to the phone lines. And don't forget, guys, like and subscribe to the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Hit the bell. We really appreciate you being here on a Sunday night. So let's get to some calls. Who's this and where you calling from?
Hey, this is Tobias calling out of Phoenix, Arizona, ironically. I'm from Montgomery, though.
Yeah. I love Phoenix, man. I was there for spring training for years, man. Love that area. Scottsdale.
Yeah. Scottsdale is hot still is all I got to say. But but thing is, but watching Alabama this year, I'm very objective. The problem when people get on Pete Golden, the problem is when his bad is really bad. That's what kills him. But Bill O'Brien, to me, he's just not good at his job. It kind of reminds me of Tosh Lupoy. You get 1 year in and he's going to be out. And I just really think he needs to update his LinkedIn profile. But but the offensive line, and I'm just wondering, you mean to tell me there isn't anyone on the bench better than Chris Owens? They both doing two different positions yesterday. He's still stuck. And this guy's been here since forever. And I'm thinking, he can't get the run game going. The quarterback's getting hit, and this guy keeps missing assignments. He's not a freshman. He's like a super senior. So you can't tell me a young guy is going to do any worse. And that's just something that I just peep and I'm thinking to myself, Georgia sees this. Georgia doesn't have to blitz. And if your offensive line is leaky, and I also think that maybe give Roydell some more touches because B-Rob does his job. He does a great job. He's improved a lot. But Roydell may be able to give you that extra oomph to get away from somebody, to make someone miss. And I think that they need to go ahead and put some of these young guys in, give them a shot, because once you play the Georgias of the world, you're gonna need some more game breaking out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was that offensive line. It was tough to watch that last night at times.
Yeah.
I mean, there was absolutely no run game, and I don't know enough to tell you why I'm watching guys run right up the middle. Is it the center? Is it the guard? Is it the running back? I thought I knew football, and then I used to, I sat with Mike Johnson, All-American for a couple of games, including the national championship game in Phoenix or in Glendale, right? And I would be like, hey, this is what happened. He'd be like, nope, here's what happened, and it's like, I don't know it well enough to sit here and say why, but it sure did seem like when Owens moved to center, things just came unraveled quick for Alabama.
Yeah, and I think you got to talk about receivers. Sometimes you got to do like the mama bird does a baby bird. Put them out there, they fly or they go splat. I love Slade Bolden. He does his job, but he has no explosion. There's no next gear. You got some young guys with that next gear who could stress the defense. And you can throw a 5-yard pass to Slade Bolden, getting 5 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Trayshawn Holden, you thought he put the ball in his hand, he'd go to the house. JoJo Earl, he could be a jitterbug that get in space. And I'm just thinking, they're going to have to, against New Mexico State, sorry, Kyle, that they're going to have to get some of those guys some touches, some reps, get them out there, because Arkansas is going to be tough.
Oh, yeah.
They're well coached. Auburn, I don't know what's going on. It's like a hex when they go to Auburn. I don't know what's going on. They put a root on Alabama, they go up there. And then, Georgia. But I do have a question about Georgia, though.
Yeah.
I know everybody's hyping up Stetson Bennett. I'm just being objective here. Bryce Young has at least thrown passes when he's stressed, when in close games, things ain't going right. Georgia ain't played yet when everything ain't going right. Everything's been going swimmingly.
Yeah.
And I think that may be something that could help Alabama, but they need to do their assignments. And one thing I'll say this, and I'll run, thanks for taking my call. The middle on the defensive one, I give Kool-Aid credit. He played a good game yesterday.
Yeah.
You didn't hear his name that much.
Mm-mm.
But the two middle linebackers, Harris and Toho, they are going to have to play with force. Knock somebody on their butt. Stop arm tackling. Meet people in the hole. Because those linebackers set the tone. And I guess Phil Mathis has been playing a lot better up the middle as well. I want to give him his flowers too. But hey, you guys have a good one. And you guys are right. Nick Saban has done a heck of a coaching job with this team, and I think that goes unnoticed as well.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys have a good one.
Hey, great call, Tobias. Roll Tide out in Phoenix. All right, let's go back to the phone lines again, and we appreciate you guys for hanging on as we've talked Alabama football with Kyle Henderson on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up as you hang out with us tonight. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is Darrell from Huntsville.
What's up, Darrell?
Man, you know what we talked about 3 weeks ago? I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
And when we talked about 3 weeks ago, I told you, Tobias just stole my thunder, that if Chris Owens was a starter, that tells me one or two things. Either Saban is being loyal to him because he's been there 6 years, or he's better than what we got on the bench. Something's wrong. Because if Chris Owens is better than if he's not better, if he's the best that we've got, we're in trouble. He cannot block. I told you, go back to the South Carolina game 2 years ago. He was a starting center, and he got 8 alive by the nose guard. And that's how Dickerson became the center. They moved Dixon and set him on the bench. So Chris Owens, I looked at the blocking. I do know something about football. I know when somebody can't play, and he can't play. That's just calling. And we've seen this before with Coach Saban. He has an affinity for a player. I don't know if you remember this guy, Jervis, 2010 team. He was a starting linebacker over Courtney Upshaw. He was horrible. And he started the whole season. I guarantee he didn't make 20 tackles the whole season. He started the whole season. Courtney Upshaw came off the bench, and you saw Courtney Upshaw against Michigan State in the Capital One Bowl, and you saw what he had been sitting on the bench all that time. Same way with Trayshawn Holder. How is Trayshawn not the third receiver in their formation?
Right.
How? He's shown enough to where he could. If you just give me a bigger chance, I could show you even more. So, and then there's common sense coaching. Last night in the fourth quarter, they had a screen called, a flanker screen called to the left to Mechie. And Jamison Williams had Kevin Hart on him. And instead of audibling in one-on-one, no safety help, how in the world you not going to throw the ball to Jamison Williams? And remember, they ended up throwing the ball, and because he was an ineligible receiver, they got a flag.
No, that was terrible.
Horrible.
Awful.
So this just, see again, and Coach keeps saying the same thing, but it's not improving. We just got to get better. We got to get better. And he's done a hell of a job, but it's not improving. And we got to admit, when we see an ace, we know an ace. Malachi Moore cannot cover in man-to-man. Look at the film. Film don't lie. Malachi Moore cannot cover in man-to-man. He's either going to get a penalty or he's going to get beat. So can we advance? It's going to be hard to beat Auburn. I know that because Auburn, I agree with what you call it. It's like they got some voodoo magic when you go down to Auburn. And you better be ready to play. But can we beat Georgia? Yes, we can beat Georgia. I'm going to tell you why we can beat Georgia. I've scouted Georgia for 3 times. You know who Georgia is, Mr. Gillispie? Georgia is 2009 Alabama. Greg McElroy and a bunch of great athletes around.
That's right. That's a great point.
That's exactly who they are.
Hey, look, and let me say something there. Hold your thought, because you just kind of tapped into something that I've been kind of feeling, and I've mentioned it a few times. But we need Georgia just to keep on feeling invincible. We just need, this is the path that I see a possibility for this Alabama team. Struggling, barely getting by, somehow getting it done. Look, they're 9-1. When they win next week, right? They'll be 9-1 when they beat New Mexico State, right? That's going to happen. They're going to beat Arkansas. It'll be a tough game, whatever. They go in there, right? They go in there. So if they get to Atlanta, the Alabama is always going to play up to the level of competition. That's just the way it's always been. Even when Alabama had bad teams with Shula, they always show up for these games. They're going to be ready. We need Stetson Bennett is just like Greg McElroy. It's the same exact thing. Right. He's a game manager. He isn't able to make certain throws on the field. He's a really smart football player. He does a lot of things right. He doesn't normally get you beat. But if you put him in stressful positions like Alabama did in the second half last year, he's very pedestrian. And Georgia hasn't been put in that spot yet. And I don't know if there's any team that can do that to them this year except Alabama. And I know they can.
And I agree with everything you said. Here's my game plan if I'm the coach. I've seen Georgia play 4 times. And their front 7 is awesome. There's no doubt about it. But their secondary is untested because nobody can get to that level. So if their secondary is untested, that means a lot of times you build up a confidence because you have something to back you up. But if we can get to the secondary, I think we could do damage to their secondary. And again, you run crossing routes, you run floor, and Georgia's gonna blitz you. Now, no doubt about it, Georgia's going to blitz. So you got to beat the blitz. You got to have a game plan. 1-2, the ball's gone. Quick slants.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the RPO game? It just disappeared. Because when you run the RPO game, you put that guy in conflict. Somebody's got to be in conflict. If you can conflict enough guys, then you can beat coverage. So it's not all gloom and doom, but I think Coach Saban has some hard decisions to make. And he's got to go in there and say, hey, I appreciate everything you did. You've been a loyal soldier, Chris, but here's a nail that you can go sit on this bench. And we'll holler at you. You got your diploma, you got a national championship, we'll holler at you. In fact, you might have two. So you did a good job. You're going to be a great spokesman for the University of Alabama.
Right. Really good, smart, bright kid, too.
Yes, sir, he is. There's nothing.
Yeah.
But he can't play. It's just that simple. I call it like I see it.
Right.
I wish the best for him. I know he's going to be successful in life.
Yeah.
But he'll never be, when we start talking about the pantheon of Alabama players, you'll never bring his name up again.
No.
So at the end of the day, and I'm going to get off the line, I know somebody else wants to call in. At the end of the day, we just got to keep plugging. We got to eliminate, stop talking, stop saying, hey, we going to eliminate the mistakes in the secondary. Eliminate.
Mm-hmm.
If not eliminate, find somebody that can execute your game plan. That's what those recruiting classes do. They build depth. If you have depth, find somebody you believe can execute your game plan, and let's win. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Thanks, Darrell. Great call, man. I feel you on a couple of those points. I mean, I really do think Alabama could beat Georgia. I think that Alabama could surprise Georgia. I think Georgia's rolling right now, and they haven't had to deal with adversity, and Alabama's trying to navigate through it every single game. Who's this and where you calling from?
Hey, it's Demetrius from North Carolina.
What's up, Demetrius?
I was trying to keep my head above water. Yeah, I had to call me, and I re-looked over the game again, and I was the one who left the comment about the other assistant coaches' calls. I mean, you got the NFL offensive line coach that come to college and come on, man, this is what we got. I can't blame it on them young men, the athletes. To me, it's all coaching. You know, I know we have a plethora of new coaches that came in. A lot of people don't realize that. You know, we always in the coaching carousel. You know, we always got Coach Nick Saban to float the ship, but I just don't know. It's these coaches not getting these young men prepared for these games.
Look, they're getting paid a lot of money. I mean, the coaches are getting paid at Alabama as well as any coaches in the country. You know, so the defense with some of the missed coverages, it's frustrating when you see those guys down the middle of the field wide open. The offense is definitely struggling as well. I don't know. I mean, the offense has definitely taken a big step back this year with creativity. I think that's the biggest criticism that I can throw out there. Sark was just so good. And look, he had a lot of great players too, right? That were experienced. Lane Kiffin before him did an excellent job. Mike Loxley did a good job. And Sark did a great job. You got to be creative and try to get those mismatches in college, the one-on-ones, where a guy can use his speed to, or elusiveness to make plays. And I feel like when Alabama lost McClellan, they just don't seem to have, besides Williams and not even Menchie. I think Williams is the guy, besides him and Bryce Young. There's some good players there, but nobody that's really stepped up to be the next guy, a game breaker.
That's why I say coaching. I mean, we have two awesome dynamic tight ends. It seemed like they lost in space. And, maybe I'm hoping like the walk-off second and 26-year maybe Coach Saban gonna wait till the last minute and insert their freshmen in like they done Devontae Smith and Jerry Judy, you know, and Najee Harris, you know, that championship game they showed out. And, you know, that was really, really the first time truly that they came in and contributed it like that, other than Devontae Smith in that Mississippi State game.
Right.
So maybe, I don't know. I still trust in Nick Saban, but I honestly do believe this new core assistant coach we have in there this, you know, need to realize that they playing at Alabama. This ain't no cupcake.
Yeah. Hey, look, I mean, this team, though, is still in position. I mean, you're still talking about the number 2 team last week in the college football playoff ranking. They still won the game against LSU. They won the game against Tennessee. They weren't easy wins. You know, LSU was 4 quarters like that. Tennessee was 3 quarters of back and forth football. I think the thing that bothers me the most about the LSU game is just I just felt like the offense just looks so out of sorts, and they've got to get that figured out if they're going to continue to, you know, get to the college football playoff, because it's a tough road.
I mean,
they can't lose a game or they're out, I would think.
Out of sorts is an understatement. I'm still in my mind. I'm like, come on, man, it got to be something. This is the 2 weeks of preparation, and this is what, you know, no new play, no wrinkle, no nothing, and, you know, still the same drop balls, still the same, you know. I mean, I remember my days in high school playing football. You know, our offensive line, we took it personal.
Right.
I mean, the quarterback was I mean, it was on a pedestal. I mean, I don't see that fight in them to take it personal on protecting the quarterback, keep him off his back. And I think I'm looking at the coaches.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people agree with you.
So
a lot of people to agree with you, Demetrius. I mean, a lot of them. I mean, the comments. I would say that, you know, it's between O'Brien and the defensive coordinator. I don't know why, Pete Golding. There's a lot of frustration.
Look at the mishaps on special teams. Come on, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, the punter, we back in a critical condition with our punting. He can't flip the field.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, so I'm gonna let you go and talk to some other callers. I'm gonna keep listening to the show. Roll Tide.
Hey, Roll Tide. Thanks for calling in from North Carolina. Always love to hear from Demetrius. Roll Tide. Alabama fans all over the country. Guys, like and subscribe. Hit the bell as you hang out with us on this Sunday night as we talk about the Alabama LSU game. 20-14 was the final. Alabama did beat the Tigers to improve to 8-1. They've got New Mexico State coming up. Let's go right back to the phone lines. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Mr. Gillispie, this is Jervis calling in from Texas.
Jervis, what's up, man?
Whew, man, where do I start after last night? I will say that. I mean, for a win, it definitely feels like another loss. And just it feels like the Florida game all over again,
yes.
in my opinion.
Yes.
One thing I have seen is that when teams get physical with us and murk, I think teams' game plan is to murk the game up against us.
Yeah.
Because we like to win pretty and get out to a big lead. You know, I feel like we're like a racehorse. You know, we get out to a good start, good lead, we'll wipe dust the competition. But if we get a slow start, you know, the other teams get that confidence up, and then we're really into a dogfight. So, like I said, last night, even though we won, it really felt like a loss.
You're exactly right. I mean, it feels just like the Florida game. It does. And the thing that Florida did was, you know, make it tough on Alabama and made him play 4 quarters. It was also like the Texas A&M game where LSU got out to the early lead and Alabama had a really tough time responding, you know, but every single game they've played this year, they could have easily won. You know, they lost one game to Texas A&M, but you're right. It's like the games that they lose, it's kind of like they like to play this fast pretty game. And then when it turns into these kind of like muddy, I like that evaluation. I think you're right.
Yeah, and I'll say this, with the way we've been playing, all of Alabama Nation needs to really be Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss fans this week and hope they take down Texas A&M for us, because if we did how it happened to lose to Auburn and Texas A&M wins out, they'll go to Atlanta. So this week we really need Ole Miss to potentially knock A&M out of the picture for us.
Yeah. And look, game day is going to be there. I saw Lane Kiffin tweeted at Katy Perry. Remember when Katy Perry showed up and picked Ole Miss over Alabama, and that happened, the Grove will be a really rocking place this week for that matchup. And I'm curious to see how this turns out. I mean, outside of Georgia and Alabama, the rest of the league is kind of bunched together in the middle with a lot of really solid teams.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, Mick. And going back to the game last night, what really disappoints me, there's a few things that really disappoint me, but we came off of a bye week. We had 2 weeks to prepare. We had revenge supposedly as the main objective, and they come into our house and almost give Orgeron a win on his way out of the door when it's supposed to be a revenge game for us. I mean, we came out super flat, no edge. When they got up 7-0, it's like they were like, okay, we can beat these guys. And then it was a dogfight from then on. So I would like to see us start the game desperate, start like we're down 7-0.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's a great point. I mean, I can't even imagine this, Jarvis. What Ed Orgeron would have done had he won that football game.
Oh,
he probably would have ripped his shirt off Hulk Hogan style. Yeah, he would have walked up to Saban and flexed on him, but pointed to the student section. Yeah. I mean, he lost and he walked off like he won. Yeah, we just saw the game, man. You didn't win. You guys put up a good fight, but you didn't win.
Yeah, and I hate he got that moral victory on us. The only thing I will say how he got his team so locked in is because people forget we walked into Baton Rouge last year and handed them their worst loss in a long time. While we had revenge in our minds, they had revenge on their minds.
Right. Well, they were playing. Look, but you talk about respect. Ed Orgeron ran his mouth. We had the clip on here. We played it a lot. There's the one in the locker room we didn't play, but it's because he was using the F word. Their players running to the student section. Alabama went in there last year and annihilated them. And this year, it was like they were playing for respect. I mean, they were a 29-point underdog. 30 in Pearl River Resort over at the casino in Mississippi. I mean, Ooh. Yeah, I mean, so they have 4- and 5-star players. They're not coached very well, but you know what? They took the week off and they used it a lot better than Alabama did. I mean, you got to give them credit for that. They had a game plan. They just didn't have. They're just not good enough to beat Alabama. Alabama played one of their worst games. LSU played their best game. And LSU's still not good enough to beat Alabama. And that tells you exactly where the programs are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Mick. And I know, especially coming off a game last night, you have a lot of people in mind. So I got about 2 or 3 more points, and I'll let you get to another caller. My first point is, I heard somebody say on defense, all I see is 1 first-round pick on defense, which is Will Anderson. Other than that, we don't have anyone else on defense that maybe Christian Harris that is a first-round draft pick. So it's like we switched our offensive identity for our defensive identity. It's like it just flip-flopped over the years. Mm-hmm. We become more of a finesse team. Like I said, on offense, we're all finesse. If you jam us up, get physical with us, we're going to struggle. If Jameson Williams doesn't get open, we're going to struggle. We do need Trayshawn Holden to emerge as that third option because that really killed us last night as well. Roydell Williams was the third leading receiver with 1 catch for 24 yards. We can't have our running back being the third leading receiver. And the last point I make is they snapped our streak of 30-point win games. I was pretty upset about that. We scored over 30 since the Georgia National Championship game, and they snapped their streak too. So my final point would be, I think this win should be more of an eye opener than the Texas A&M loss going forward. So I think that's all I got for you, Mick. Thanks for taking my call and Roll Tide.
I always love talking to you, Jarvis. Roll Tide, man. Thank you for calling in from Texas. All right, guys, let's do a couple more calls before we wrap it up on a Sunday night. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with all you guys. And again, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so that you know when we've got more programming, and we've got a whole week of programming coming up. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, Mick, it's Marco, man. You already know how we coming, brother. How you doing?
What's up, man?
Not much, man. That was funny. My man said we probably got one defensive first rounder, but I'll digress on that. So, one of the things that I noticed is that Saban, throughout his tenure, if you know him well. He's very loyal to those who stick around, and I think, he does that because he uses that as a selling point. Right, Nick? He does that. He uses that as a pitch. He rewards those guys who sits around. And whether it's Mac Jones, even if it's Kenyon Drake, even though he actually never became the true bell guy, he likes to genuinely say there's a pride in rewarding those guys that stick around. You know that. So I think that's one of those things that's why we see Chris Owens a little bit more. We see B-Rob a little bit more. But let's be realistic. I remember Roydell Williams getting in the game and fumbling his first game in a pivotal drive.
Right.
So we talk about putting these young guys in, and then they get in the game and they nut up in a pivotal situation. That's your 4th, 5th-year guy just not going to do those things. Mm-hmm. Right? So I think we have to be quite careful what we ask for, right? That's one of those things that I definitely have a zero tolerance for when we have these guys that are really exceptional and then they get in and make a pivotal mistake like that. So I think that's kind of why you don't see a lot of those young guys as much as you might want to see them. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter is we only get to see cut up of them hidden sledges and dummies. We don't get to see what they're really looking like in practice. That's one of the things I take away. And B-Rob as well, like I said last night. B-Rob, to me, he's a great change of pace back, but he's not going to give you the juice that you want. He's not going to give you the game-breaking things like Najee did. And it wasn't like Najee ran a 4.2 or anything like that. It was just he was game-breaking because he had developed an ability to be patient, press the hole, knew when to cut back, and he had the size and physicality to match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That to me made the big difference in terms of, B-Rob and what he does. I don't like he kind of runs into the backs of the linemen a little bit too much for me. So that's kind of an issue that I have. But last night, like I said, with Chris Owens going to center, I don't think it's a matter of Chris Owens is the best that we have, but let's be realistic. Did we notice that J.C. Latham or Brockemeyer didn't come into the game when we had a need for right tackle?
I know. I did notice that. Great point, Demarco. Yeah, I was looking at that too. Where are these guys?
Yeah, exactly. And we still have another guy that people probably forgot about, Pierce Quick. He's a former 5-star offensive lineman as well that we brought in a couple of years ago. I think in the 2019 class. Another 5-star is just sitting on the bench. He got in early in the season. But I say that to say there's a reason why we throw out names and we say this guy will be the next. If this happens, then, when we get a situation in that position, that guy doesn't even get on the field. And it, part of that, to me, I always question why that happens. What is that's happening in practice that we don't see? And when I look at the guy that came in at right tackle, I forget his name, if you notice, the minute he stepped into that field, LSU went crazy because they stacked the box horizontally. You didn't know who was going to come and who was going to bail. So that required immense communication. So when we're looking at what happened, let's be realistic. Once your center goes out of the game, your entire offensive game plan probably changes. No, don't make any mistake about it. Your center is the one who's calling out who's getting picked up. They're calling out the initial pass pro. They're the ones responsible for getting the ball snapped under center and in shotgun, and they're communicating. They're the quarterback up there. So when Chris Owens, he played center, had to go to center, and we bring in freshmen from right tackle, the line of communication is broken because that group of 5, they did not see first-team reps together in that particular unit. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, again, I think we're victims of our own progression, and I think as fans, we don't really – a lot of us, don't really know the true X's and O's of football. Like you you showed a high level of intellectual humility earlier. That's what I call that. When you admit, hey, listen, I thought I knew some things, and then when I sat down with people who really did know some things, like, wow,
Yeah.
A lot of us, we don't have it in us to admit that, but that's what really happens. A lot of the times, we're looking at it, we're not cognizant of that,
Yeah, I mean, look, I sat there and watched the game with Mike Johnson, and he played in the NFL, and I mean, he was an offensive lineman. He knows all that. He's an expert. Now he's a coach doing it, and I just realized at that point that what sometimes I think I see in football is right. Sometimes I'm right. A lot of times I'm right, but sometimes I'm not, so right. I've got to kind of try to pick and choose when I'm really strong about something. And when I see guys running at the quarterback, like last night, I'm not exactly sure whose fault that was, but I'll tell you what, it was bad. There were some plays where I felt so bad for Bryce Young because he was just getting harassed and hit and smacked around, and it just wasn't good.
That's unacceptable to take that kind of pressure right in the front of the pocket. So I definitely agree with you. I don't make any excuses for Owens. He's definitely got to be better, but I know what it is. It's Saban wanting to be able to use that loyalty, that pitch of you waiting your turn and things of those natures. And we talk about why we don't get guys in the slot. Well, let's be realistic. If you watch football, you saw that Clemson this year is having a trouble even trying to find a slot. They, we have a slot in, Slade Bolden. That particular position is not an easy position to run. If you remember, when we had Jalen Waddle, Smith, and all those guys, literally one of the biggest things that made Smitty stand out his last year was Saban said it. He could move inside, outside, anywhere in the formation. A lot of those guys can only play one spot in a formation. They can only play X, Y. A lot of them can't. Some can play Z, some can play Y, some can, they can't do that. So we look at Trayshawn Hole and all these guys we got on the bench, but those guys are probably X and Y. Those guys, they're not getting on the field over J. Will. You're not getting on the field over Mechie. So you can probably only come in when it's a situation where you either one of those guys is out or maybe you go into the slot. So I think that's another thing that we have to keep in mind. We need to, realize that there are certain limitations that guys have in terms of the playbook. And maybe that's why we don't see some of those guys up front. Because I can tell when that right tackle got in the game last night, he didn't know what the hell to do in blitz pickup. He got abused in blitz pickup, and it was abundantly clear. That's why he sits on the bench.
Yeah.
So it's not so much as the talent. You ever do a job and people have more talent than you. Like Tony Romo, for example, is a better broadcaster than he ever was a quarterback.
Yeah.
When he sits across from Tom Brady and interviews him, he knows Tom Brady is just better. But then you have some guys that may be better, but they're not coached up well enough to understand. And that's what Nick Saban talks about. You watch his presses, he says, hey, you have to know how to use the talent that you have that creates value first for Alabama and then for yourself. Because by creating value for Alabama, you're creating value for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the reason why we have those problems. And, we'll get to UGA when we earn the right to play them. I'm not sold on that. I like the defense, but people forget Jordan Davis was on that defense 2 years ago when 66 Cornbread Brown was blocking him and Evan Neal was combo slipping him to get to the second level. So let's cut that out. That defense is not anything that we haven't seen. We've seen that defense, and I think we'll be fine. We've got some things that we need to, get corrected, but I think as fans, like I said, Nick, we got to look in the mirror, man. We're victims of our own success. We're complaining about things that, we can correct, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, we should appreciate the wins. I agree with Nick Saban on that. And I'm an OG now, like I'm telling you, I've been way back in the day when I was in school, Alabama lost that game. We were talking last week, 2 weeks ago in Tennessee, the Tennessee game. And, and I had to remind everybody, look, man, I know it was a close game, but you know what? It wasn't. You play 4 quarters in football. We had this coach named Mike Shula that Alabama lost all the fourth quarter games, and then Saban shows up and you wipe Tennessee on the floor for 15 straight years. That's amazing. So you got to appreciate that part of it too. We get frustrated with games like last night, but the biggest compliment that I can give any coach or any professional is when you're a winner. And Nick Saban is a winner. And even with this team that has some really talented guys, the product on the field is inconsistent, but it wins. And I mean, that's
I want to ask you
bottom
about,
line.
I wanted to ask you about how you feel about Bill O'Brien. I said last night he doesn't know how to genuinely scheme things to confuse young men, and I kind of contrasted him to Sark. I wanted to kind of ask you, last night, I don't know if you watched it, there was a lot of bracket and combo coverage over Jay Will. They rolled coverage over the top of him and bracketed underneath him the entire game. So I know Kyle brought up that they knew that they were going to throw to Demetrius on third down. And I think a lot of that was they were taking Jay Will out as much because you saw what happened. The one, even when they had coverage over the top and they bracketed him underneath, what he did, he still found a way to split it. But that's just raw athleticism and be young, being able to get the ball on him. So we see what kind of threat that creates. But I said, the point about, about Bill O'Brien not being able to scheme guys open. I think when they were stacking that box with 7 or 8 guys, he had too many 8-9 yard developing routes and plays. What did you see from that? What did you make of that?
I mean, I feel like Sarkisian was perfect for Alabama. Both times he was offensive coordinator. Okay. The second time, I mean, he was able to get guys in space and allow them to make plays, right? He made it was a lot easier for them to do what they're supposed to do. I'm not sure why it looks so difficult this year, but I really feel like it goes back to the offensive line. Last year, Alabama's offensive line got a Heisman Trophy wide receiver. They got a bunch of guys put in the NFL in the first round, like Mac Jones. I mean, they were the best offensive line in the country. Honestly, they were the best offensive line maybe Alabama's ever had. I mean, it was really hard to you put them up with anybody. I'm telling you, and look, maybe if they're not, then they're really close, right?
They're close.
I love those guys. This year, I just feel like the offensive line it's just not good enough for Alabama. It's okay, but I don't know that you can win a national championship the way that things are going right now. And that's to me the problem.
That left side's not bad. That left side, I like Cohen and Neal, but I think Neal helps Cohen out a lot. But I'll say I do like to me, our center play hasn't been bad since the Florida game when he just clearly got rattled. He just got rattled. And the snap counts were off and everything was abysmal. But, that left side, we've been going over there all season when we need a run. That left side is solidified. Now, how we mirror that on the right side is beyond me. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know that I think Owens comes in at what is he, 6'3", 6'4"? So I really like my tackles to be around that 6'7", 6'8", kind of range, and for obvious reasons, they can kind of, steal that edge off. But you're right, we cannot continue to allow Bryce to get hit. Kyle made a valid point. I don't think we can win a championship with Paul Tyson orchestrating the show, because if you look at the difference in their play style, yes, Paul Tyson is a bigger arm. He'll probably go more for those deep balls, but for what Bryce does and how he, magicians things, I don't know, Mick. I think we'd be in trouble if we got to a point where we had to go to a second string quarterback. But I think we got some things we can improve on. We're still winning. We're in a fair position. But again, Nick Saban, I said this all the time. He knows more football than all of us combined. So if he's made certain decisions and he's seeing certain things and he's being very positive with the team, you called out something that I noticed. You did it like a couple weeks ago. I worry when Nick Saban's too positive.
Yeah.
He was smiling after the game last night, and he was saying, "Hey, let's be thankful for the win." And those things, I'm not gonna say they concern me, but because it could be Miss Terry. Like Miss Terry genuinely has changed Nick over the years. If you know, she's always doing something that kind of has changed him over the years. So maybe that's what it is. He's getting a little wiser, he's getting a little smarter, but. I don't know, Nick. I kind of thought that you said that a couple of weeks ago, so I'm gonna see if that comes back on us.
Hey, I said it again today to Kyle too. When Nick Saban starts to get real nice to everybody, I'm like, oh man, something's going on here. But you know what? Being the captain of the ship, you know when the guys need to be patted on the back, and you know when they need to be pushed. And when they win those big games, he's going to ride them, and when they're struggling and fighting but still winning, he's going to be positive, because look, he said it earlier this year, you can win the game and not dominate your opponent, not defeat your opponent. Right. And that was one of those games last night. Alabama won the game, but they didn't really defeat LSU, but they still won the game. And at the end of the day, the goal is to have one more point than the team you're playing. And 8 out of 9 times
Right.
this year, Alabama's done that, and they're still in position to accomplish every single goal that they set out for themselves at the beginning of the
Everything
year.
in front of them.
Right.
That's right. That's right. I think you want to see a game like that. It shows you a lot early on. If you can survive a game like that, you're battle tested. I think you made this point earlier. You said, hey, Georgia hasn't been tested.
Right.
We've been tested.
Yep.
We've been tested. That's why LSU beat Clemson a couple of years ago. Clemson was not tested in 2019.
Yep.
LSU was tested several times, and it shows itself when the biggest moments, and you can call on these moments as, hey, we're going to pull through, guys. But, yeah, man, you make a lot of great points. I catch on to them. I just kind of put them like lightning in the bottle, and I know I'm going to need them one day, and I always use them when I do.
Hey, thanks, Demarco, man. Great call. I always love hearing from you and all you guys, man. I mean, this
Brother.
Hey, thank you, brother. Call back after the game next week. We'll be doing the same thing Saturday night, and then always on Sunday at 6:00. We're going to take your calls Central Time, 7:00 Eastern. All right, thank you, man. Have a great week.
Easy, brother.
Roll Tide. Well, look, it was an awesome experience talking to you guys tonight about this game. It was really therapeutic because honestly, like after last night and until today, you know, like there's this part of you that's like, hey, you almost feel like you're, you know, like it was a loss, but you got to keep reminding yourself that it's a win. Just like I said, you know, it's about getting the next dub and moving on to the next game. Alabama has a really good week to work on things that they need to improve on. And then it's a 2-game schedule. You got to win 2 games. You win those 2, and then you go to Atlanta to play Georgia. What'll be great is if Alabama gets that done and they go to Atlanta, the entire world will be telling Alabama that they can't win. I got a feeling they're going to be underdogs for the first time this season, and it could be substantial. You know, it could be substantial. I mean, Alabama could be 7 to 9 point underdog to Georgia, which would be incredible, right? But Georgia's been dominant. Alabama struggled. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'd be 3. But I think Georgia would be in the state of Georgia in Atlanta in that game, despite the fact that Alabama has beaten them convincingly. Well, they did last year, and they've beaten them in these games lately. I think it would be good for Alabama to be the underdog. That's when Nick Saban's his most dangerous, when he has the team's attention. And you saw that when Alabama was coming up with Nick Saban. And 2008, they got to the championship game in Atlanta, the SEC title game against Tim Tebow in Florida. They could have won the game, but they didn't. And by 2009, they obliterated Florida, then they took care of Texas, and then since then it's been the Alabama show. It's been the dynasty, and it is a dynasty. Every single year, Alabama is in position to win a national championship. They won last year. They're in position this year. Guys, thanks again for hanging out with us. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. We got Monday Night Quarterback tomorrow at 6:00. We'll have on Tuesday Andrew Bone and his recruiting show, and we will also have our college football playoff show. That'll come on at 6:00. That's when we will sit back, watch the rankings come out, and figure out, what it looks like, the second rankings. And remember now, Michigan State lost, so they're out. They were there, and now they're not there anymore, right? No more Wake Forest talk. So that field is definitely getting thinned out. Wednesday, you'll do your score prediction show with Kyle Henderson and Trey Hannity. And then on Friday, we'll have the Bama Insider Tailgate Show back at Innisfree. We'll be there 6 to 8 on Friday. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I'm Mick Gillispie for Kyle Henderson. Roll